Welcome to Monday Markers with Charlie. Today we're going to talk about the Harwick Mine explosion of 1904. This was the worst mining accident in Allegheny County. It affected a complex of mines that ran 500 feet below the surface under the towns of Cheswick and Springdale. As was usual, we really don't know exactly how many died. People were so badly burned. Records were not always well kept, but approximately 186 miners were killed. And in a methane explosion, and then in a rescue attempt that followed. It was 3 years later that the worst mining disaster in Pennsylvania history, the Dar Mine in Westmoreland, killed 239 men and boys. It's very difficult for us to get our head around the horrific toll that coal mining took of the death toll and the anthracite and bituminous. When they're added together, I discovered that by the official records, from 1890 to 1920, those 30 years, in 26 of those years, over 1,000 miners were killed in the coal mines of Pennsylvania. In 1907 was the worst year with 1,514. And 1907 also witnessed the worst American coal mine disaster just over the state line in Monongah, West Virginia, where 362 dead was the official estimate. But modern research indicates that there may have been as much as 100 more killed that were not properly recorded. Thousands were dying in the mines of explosions, rockfalls, electrocutions, suffocation, etc. Tens of thousands more were dying slowly of coal dust in the lungs, a condition that became known in modern times as black lung. In the Harwick Mine, dynamite that was being used to loosen the coal in the seam ignited methane, which in turn ignited fine particles of coal dust suspended in the air that traveled to every place in the mine like a streak of lightning, carrying destruction in its path until finally expending its force up the air and hoisting shafts. A mule was blown up into the air out of the mine, falling dead several feet from the entrance. The only human survivor, was a young German immigrant who, badly burned, was carried to Pittsburgh St. Francis Hospital in a cart hauled by mules, an excruciating trip. 3 men died in the rescue attempts, which often happened, that people would go down and the methane would overcome them. Their heroism attracted the attention of Andrew Carnegie, who created the Carnegie Hero Fund so that people who risked their lives to save others and those dependent on those people who had died in doing so would be freed from financial care resulting from their heroism. Over 10,000 Carnegie medals and awards have been made. Most of the bodies burned beyond recognition or identification were buried in a mass grave in land donated by St. Mark's Lutheran Church beside the service road leading to the Cheswick power plant. The United Mine Workers erected a large grave marker carved with scenes of the explosion, and in 2004, as part of our centennial commemoration organized by the Pennsylvania Labor History Society and the Battle of Homestead Foundation, a group of steelworkers came and volunteered and moved the fence that had been blocking seeing the monument was right up against the monument. They moved it so that people could walk around the monument and pay their respects. The United Mine Workers hosted speeches and a dinner at the local firehouse to commemorate the centennial. United Mine Worker District 4 President Ed Yankovich gave a moving tribute to the miners who died, and especially to a young Slavic immigrant who had just come to America and was going down in the mine his first day on the job. Ed asked all of us to contemplate what was this young man's America, what was his American dream, because it was nothing more than a hope and a dream, but that hope and dream falls upon us, the living, to carry out and to make a world that is, and a nation that is open to opportunity for all. A poignant coincidence in light of this industrial mining tragedy is the fact that the Rachel Carson homestead is nearby on a rise overlooking the river. The great environmentalist's father worked in the Harwick Mine in the 1920s, 2 decades after the explosion, and it was along the Allegheny River that Rachel began to understand the destructive impact that human activity was having on the natural world. Equally poignant is the fact that another great naturalist, John James Audubon, who stayed with his wife's glass-making Bakewell family in Pittsburgh in 1824, shot a pair of passenger pigeons along the Allegheny River near Springdale to use as models in perhaps his most touching and famous painting, 2 birds billing or sharing regurgitated food. Once the most common bird in North America, the Audubon once estimated that he witnessed over 1 billion passenger pigeons migrating in vast flocks that darkened the sun for many hours. By 1901, deforestation and hunting had decimated the species in the wild, and in 1914, the last captive passenger pigeon died. The Cheswick graveyard provides a place for meaningful reflection and meditation on the cost that the search for power and for profit has taken on both working people and the natural world.